This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. Hi, all. Good morning.
Hi, Naveen. Good morning.
Yeah. So, yeah. From tomorrow, we'll shift this session to 8:45. Will that be fine with you guys? For a few days. For 2 days, I'll join 8:45. Later, we'll move back to 8:30 from Monday. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah. So yesterday we went through this topics like properties dependency injection, right? We went through properties dependency injection, right? So how to inject properties dependency injection by reading properties using property placeholder configurer, we use, and as well as we used context namespace also using context colon property placeholder and schema based configuration also we used. One schema based and one bean based configuration also we used, and we understand how to inject them using expressions, using simple dollar expression. We pass them by giving the property key. Using simple expressions we can pass through XML, and as well as using value annotation also we did that. Correct. So this is for simple properties dependency injection. We did that. So wherever we need properties using at the rate value or by using simple this dollar sign key, we can able to pass. And to read our properties, we can use property placeholder configured. There we have set locations method. Using the set locations, we have given all the properties names. Or else we can pass the sequence of property file names using context namespace also. And in case if you want to achieve internationalization, IITN, if you want to achieve IITN internationalization. So if you want to achieve IITN, for IITN they have given in IITN also we need to read properties only. But we need to maintain same name for all the properties. Yesterday we try to read news, right? We try to read news properties from multiple languages. We tried news dot properties, news Hindi properties, and news, right? So multiple properties files configured. So the same base name we need to maintain in case of IITN, right? Same base name we need to maintain for our properties files, along with the language locale extensions underscore locale we need to put. So any language properties files we can maintain, any number of properties we can maintain, but the same base name we need to use. So in all these properties files we need to maintain same keys. Keys should be same across all these properties file. Whatever key you have here, the same key one if you have here, the same key we need to maintain, and the values can be anything. Value can be anything. Here it can be a English value, it can be a Hindi value, right? It can be a Telugu value. We can maintain any number of language properties files, right? So to read these properties, what we used, resource bundle message source class we used. Using this resource bundle message source class, there is a setter method, set base name method. Using the set base name method, we need to pass the base name only here. News is the base name for your properties files. Only the base name of your properties file you need to pass here. That's it. When you load these properties, as we know, right, all these properties, either the properties which you are reading by using property placeholder configurer or by using this IITN context, right? All these are going to load it into your IOC context only. Into IOC context, the data will be going to load. So here, in case of simple properties, into IOC context, it will load all your properties. All properties will be loaded here. But when it comes to internationalization properties, when it comes to IITN properties, all properties will load it into IOC context. Again, they will be divided into by locale. IOC context for English, when we follow this IITN, it will maintain separate IOC context for Hindi, and it will maintain separate IOC context for Telugu. So for each language, for each locale, it will maintain a separate context. So all Hindi key values will load into Hindi context. All Telugu values will be loaded into Telugu context. All English will be loaded into English context. So whenever you need a value from this English context or Hindi context, how we used to get application dot get message method, your container dot, there is a method name called get message. There you need to give the key. Let's say in this all properties you have key 1. Okay, so to read your value, if you have key 1, same key we need to maintain across all the properties files. So when you give the key 1 here along with the locale, we need to pass locale object here. There is a locale class. In this locale we need to give our locale here, locale name, either English or Hindi or Telugu, whatever locale it is. When you pass this, right, when you pass this, what will happen? As you are calling application context, it will go to your context. Which context it will pick? There will be multiple contexts will be created. So in this context, whatever locale you have given, if you give locale Hindi, it will go and read values from Hindi context. If you give Telugu, Telugu context data. If you give English, English context data, it will read. So based on the language, that particular language properties file it will read, and it will give you the message. Whatever the value you have, that message value it will give here. The same thing we achieved through internationalization. In this internationalization, we created multiple properties files. For English, one use properties file and given some content here. For Hindi, we have given the same content in Hindi Unicode characters. For Telugu also, we have given Telugu Unicode characters. Same key we are maintaining here. Title, same key I have in English also. Same key I have in Hindi also, title. So now I am reading these properties by configuring them into resource bundle message source. There is a class name called resource bundle message source. So there is a setter method in that class, base name. Just give me a minute. Just a minute. Yeah. So set base name. Using the set base name, we pass the properties base name here. We pass the properties base name here. Only common name across properties files. Whatever is the common name, right? That name we pass here. So when we load this it into IOC context, right? When we load this it into IOC context, when we load this it into IOC context here, it will create multiple message context. One is for Hindi, Telugu. It will create multiple context. Okay. So what I am doing here, I given Telugu TE locale I have given. What it will do? It will read this title key from this TE context. So whatever the value we have there, that value it will return. So I just printed that value using this expression here. Okay. So this is the I18N concept. This one also already we see, right? Once again execute and see. We need a container here as it is a web application. We need a container here as it is a web application. We need a container. Yeah. Yeah. So this is how we are seeing the content here. So if you want to change the language, generally by using, we will provide the options to the users here. You can provide hyperlink. When you click on that hyperlink, you can change the language. So multi-language support if you are providing for your application, you can achieve it in any way. Finally, what you need to do is your value you should update here, the locale value. So when you update locale value, automatically context will be refreshed, so that that particular language content we will get here. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I18N. So we should not use property placeholder configurer. When you have I18N properties, you need to use resource bundle message source. Okay, just keep it. Remember this resource bundle message source for I18N and property placeholder configurer for just reading properties. Okay, just reading properties. When you have multiple locale properties, we need to use resource bundle message source. We need to use resource bundle message source. Yeah, let me go to the next concept. So yeah, we have expression language support also. We have expression language support, EL support from the Spring. What we can achieve using this EL means, see, I have some beans here. Okay, I have a car bean. Car is having dependency of model year and engine. A primitive dependency I have here, and a secondary dependency also I have here. This is primitive string, and this is the secondary dependency. And I'm trying to injecting through setter methods. Okay, set engine, set model year, set engine, and set model year. And engine class I have property model year, a simple primitive property I have. Using setter method, I'm injecting it. These two values, see the style, the way that how we injected here. So I created an engine class object. I created an engine class object here, beans engine ID, and this is the class name. We have given model year here. We have given model year here. When it comes to car class, car class is having two properties. One is model year and one is engine. So even in car class also I want to pass model year. Engine model year and car model year are same. So instead of passing value here directly, what you can do using this hash expression, right? Earlier we see dollar expression. Same way you use this hash expression, and whatever ID you have here, right? Use the same ID, and you can call the methods. You can call the getter method, and that getter method value we are able to pass in here. Not only getter method, whatever method is having string return type, you can call that method by using that class object here. Using simple expression you can able to achieve it. Otherwise this is not possible to call another class methods here directly. Either we can pass value or references. In case if you want to call another class method and the class method return value, if you want to consume here, use this. And even by using value also, if you want to pass this class object, right, use this. Generally we pass secondary class objects by using value, reference, right? We use reference equal to E, but now I'm using value. Under that value I'm giving a expression here. Using hash expression I'm giving this ID here. So this is how you can use the expression to pass values. Okay, to pass values you can use expressions also. You can use expressions to pass values. EL support also we have. So there are multiple examples for this EL. So that is one way, and there is one more example that I'll show you. In case we have constructor based dependency injection. Okay, consider car class is having constructor, right? Constructor based dependency injection, how to do constructor arguments, we follow order. Okay, in that order only we will pass the values. So here car class is having model year. That model year same like in engine class we have model year. So that model year value we are reading here, e dot model year. Okay, so engine class property I am reading here. Not only method, you can read property also. And here I want to pass engine class object. This object you can use value hash of E you can pass here, or else on the fly if you want to create new object as a Java style, even you can do that here. Anything you can do. You can call references, you can create objects, you can call properties, you can call methods. Whatever you want to do you can do here. In this, inside this expression you can put your Java logic, whichever is required for this argument. Either it's a setter method argument or constructor argument. This constructor argument is a string, pass the string return value. If this constructor argument is a secondary, you can create that secondary object here and pass the value. Okay, whatever it is, you can do by using expressions on the fly. You can able to do this. Okay, One more example. Okay, in case if you have collections, dependencies. So I have a class here, consumer class. This consumer class need a collection object, from these collections. Okay, so inside this test class, I have a fruit property dependency. From that property fruit, I want to read apple or mango. So again, using simple expression, I'm calling test class. Inside test class, I have fruit. From fruit class, I'm calling zero index value. Okay, the same thing here. I have a states capital is a map type. So I want to pass one capital value here. So in this test class, I have states and capitals. I'm calling test class reference states and capitals. I'm giving a key here so that it will fetch a value. That value will be injecting here. Right? Anything we can do. So we have this expression support. We have this expression support since Spring 2.5 version onwards. Consider you have two classes here, car and engine. So engine class is having one property, private, string, model year, and a setter method and a getter method. Car name, model year, and an engine dependency. So I have some setter and getter methods here. Go to source, generate getters and setters. Yeah. Now using expression, how to pass these values. Okay. So just get your XML. So first create engine class object E beans engine. Engine class is having one property model year. So you can pass the model year directly here. Property name model year value. Right? Using expression you can pass any value, but I don't need any expression here. Okay. So in case if you want to use any expression, you can use like string object. If you want to create, you can create string class object. Use this as expression, new string class, and you can pass value here. Okay, you can pass value here. Or else if you want to supply direct string value, why we need to create an object? If you want to pass a value, you can pass here. Model year 2022. And I have a car class. In car class, I have three properties: car name, model year, and engine. So car name, and we have model year. This model year I want to get from another bean. From this engine bean, I want to get model year. Using expression, I want to get it. So use this expression and get E dot model year. E dot model year. You can use the property name and you can use the method name also. Get model year also we have. You can call get model year also. Get model year. A getter method also we have. You can use this getter method expression also. Okay, this method name also you can pass here. Directly property name or getter method name using this engine class object reference and calling it. So basically, right, all these objects are going to create in IOC context only. So when we use this expression, IOC will understand, okay, he is trying to using engine class object and trying to calling this engine class method. So whatever this method return value we are supplying there, so that method value will be substituted here. So as model year 2022, we have given the same value after runtime, right? The same value will be substituted here. Okay, and model year, I want to pass engine object here. This engine class object I want to pass here. So here I have engine reference, and generally we use value instead of value. We use this reference and pass the e, right? So instead of this, if we use value, through value only, if you want to pass, use the expression again here and give this. So when you use value, first it will check this whether this is an object type or a method or a property. If it is an object, based on the dependency type, it will inject it. So here this dependency type is also object type, and the value also you have an object. So this value it will directly pass here. Okay, this is how you can use simple expression. And finally run this and try to get the values. So there are some jar files given from Spring 2x onwards. Spring EL jar files given. Spring expression support they have given through this EL jar files. Expression language support. But we are not using them. Once we go to Spring Boot, right, there is no XML based configuration, so that we really need not to worry about. So application context to dot get bean car class. Now I can call c dot get car name just to make sure that this value is injected or not. Get model year and c dot get engine dot get model year. We should be able to get all these values if dependency injection happened. Yes, we are getting car name, model year through expression we passed, and engine object also we have given. Through engine object also we are getting model year. Okay, so this is how you can do. In case if you have class with the constructor also, let's say here we have one default constructor and one parameterized constructor also. Source constructor. So I have one parameterized constructor also here. Now I don't want pass this object directly. I don't want pass this object here. Instead I want to create a new object. You can create new beans dot engine, and it's a parameterized constructor. You need to pass value here. You need to pass a string value here, right? We have a model here. This value you need to pass here. Model year 2021. And you can run it. Yeah. So this is the expression, right? (2021). whatever the bean we injected, right? 2021 bean injected here, so that 2021 we are getting. And here in the model year, we given this bean. Into the engine dependency injection, we given a new bean, all brand new bean created and given it. Okay, but yeah, when we use this annotation based, really need not to bother about it. Okay. Any doubts?
I have one small doubt. So suppose for the model year, property number 2, you are using e.get model year. So this is public method in that particular proposal. If we are trying to access with e.model year directly, but that is private there, right? It will be accessible here.
Yeah, let's try e.model here. So this is the property name, right?
Yeah, this is the property name.
So it's a private property. As we create it as private property, generally it should not accessible. But you are getting right? Yeah. So basically, do you know this concept, reflection?
Yes.
Yeah. So in reflections, you know, right? Everything we can access. Even if you have private variables, private methods also, we can set them public.
Okay.
Internally, the reflection concept Spring will use. It will do set accessible to true, so that everything is accessible, though you declare it as a private. Okay.
Entire application.
Yeah.
What will be the scope in entire application?
Sorry, your voice is breaking.
What would be the scope in entire application for the accessibility?
Entire application scope means basic scope is singleton for object.
Okay. No, I was telling about the variable. Suppose we are setting it to private. So if reflection being used back at the back end of the string, so it will be accessible entire application, right?
Yeah, you can access anywhere. Though it is private also, you can access.
Okay.
Yeah. Across all your packages, one package data you can able to access from outside the package also. As everything, it will convert into public only. Okay. But in general, if from someone try to access directly using object, right? Object reference, you can't able to call in Java. But Spring configurations can do that. Getting right what I'm saying? I injected engine object here. I injected engine object into car. If car trying to call, right? Here I have engine. Using this engine property somewhere in this, in any method, try to call the property, private property. You cannot able to call. Model here is a private. Directly you can't call it. But you can do it through the Spring. Okay, Spring can do that. But the finally conclusion is here using this expression, right? We can do anything. Depends on the property type here. If you need a string, you can directly create a string object here, or else you can pass any other class object. And by calling the other class object method or a property, you can able to fetch the value and you can able to pass here. And if you want to create a dynamic objects, you can create here. Whatnot, anything you can do. I didn't try this string type. Let us do this. I want to create a string object here, new string builder, new string builder, and I want to give value here 2023. Okay, I don't want simple string object. I'm saying string builder object required. See, will this create string builder also as part of lang only, right? So by default it should be accessible. Fail to convert property string builder to required type string. Okay, so as the dependency type is string, it is unable to convert. So if your dependency is string builder type, yes, you can able to pass. string builder dependency. So instead of string, I have string builder dependency. Now into engine class, I created a string builder and I passed the value here. So into this model here also, I'm getting the same model here value, which is string builder. So it should able to pass. And yeah, so car name also we created as string builder, right? So you create an object of string builder and you can pass. Yeah. So anything is allowed, right? In expression, anything is allowed, which is required for this property. Okay. If you want to do any on the fly configurations, okay, you can do this way. Are we clear? Yeah. If yes, I'll go to the next concept. Okay. There is a factory method concept we have. Okay, factory method concept. We have aware interfaces and the event handlings. Okay, we will discuss the topics later part. Okay, after factory pattern, we will discuss about these event handlers and awares. These are important. Okay, for at least interview sake, we need to learn them. Let us discuss about factory. Yeah. So we have one factory method concept. Okay, factory method. We'll start with this. What is factory method? Factory method. So have you ever thought about this? What is this pattern? Driver manager dot get connection. Driver manager dot get connection. Here we used to pass some arguments, and finally it used to deliver object in the form of an interface reference. Did you understand the importance of this statement? Does anyone? So basically, it will create the connection that we know. Using that connection, we can do SQL operations. But you understand what about this? What is this connection? And what is this driver manager? And what is this get connection? It's a pattern actually. It's a design pattern they followed here. And this design pattern making our code wherever you are using, right? Wherever you are using your logic, wherever you are using your logic, this logic, right? Consider you implemented a DAO class, student DAO, or whatever DAO it is. You will write multiple statements here after, right? Connection dot create statement, and thereafter statement dot we get a statement object. Once after getting statement object, we create statement dot execute, update, execute, query. There are many methods that we use, execute methods. Finally, we call statement dot close and connection dot close. So a lot of lines we write after creation of connection. So have you observed this? These lines or the statement or this code will never change, though if you change your database. So I started using Oracle database for my application. I started using Oracle database for my application. Considered at the beginning you started using Oracle database. In the beginning you started using Oracle DB for implementing your application. Now later you thought to change this from Oracle to MySQL. So you want to change from Oracle to MySQL. So you want to shift the database. You want to change the database, MySQL database or DB2 database. Later from MySQL to DB2 you want to shift because of some concerns. You are changing your database DB to DB. So though you are using Oracle or MySQL or DB2, are we going to change these statements? Are you guys following?
Yes.
You will never change this code, right? You will never change this code, whatever create statement. If you have same table names, if you change the table name, of course you need to change the query. If you don't change any table name, this code will never change, correct? Only these arguments might change. That too, if you're able to pass these arguments during runtime, right? This code also you need not to change. So you might say here we need to load the class name, right? Class dot for name. Here we are loading driver, and below arguments are URL, username, password. These arguments are particular to a database that we need to change, right? Yes, if you can able to pass these arguments during runtime, even you no need to change that code, right? If you are creating connection by using some driver and by using some URL, username, passwords, and that arguments also during runtime, if you are passing, really you need not to worry about the change here. You are not going to change anything here. How this is possible? Because of this factory pattern. Because of this factory pattern. Who given this implementation? Who given this driver manager, get connection and connection interface? When JDBC implemented from Sun Microsystems, Sun Microsystem team, Sun Microsystem team, right? Sun Microsystems, right? Who implemented this? So Sun people designed JDBC. So in JDBC, what they did, they created a connection interface and they given a factory class. Sun people, what they did, they created a connection interface. This is an interface. This is an interface, not an implementation class. Connection is an interface, and they given driver manager. Driver manager is a factory class. Driver manager is a factory class. Factory class. So these classes they have given. And if someone wants to connect with Java, right? If someone wants to connect with Java like Oracle or MySQL DB2, what they did is they implemented this interface. The database partners given implementation for this interface given by Sun, and the implementations are from various databases. So Oracle did what? Oracle given an Oracle connection implementation. Oracle connection implementation. Oracle connection, Oracle driver implementations they have given. Okay, the same way MySQL given MySQL connection implementation. And DB2 given DB2 connection implementation. So the third parties or whoever is providing databases, they given implementations, not by Sun. Okay, so why Sun did this approach is because without providing this JDBC API, if Sun is not providing JDBC API, if APIs are from third parties to connect with databases, okay, consider you don't have JDBC API, Oracle given one style of implementation. Oracle said there are some statements, statement 1, statement 2, right? Some code, okay, code 1, code 2, code 3, some lines of code you need to use to connect with my database. They given some standard lines, and other database provider may not provide the same standards. They might provide something you need to use code 3, code 4, different statements, different lines of code you need to use. and maybe DB2 might provide some different statements. If they provide without having any standards, if they are going to provide implementations for connecting with their databases, their standards might be their own style standards. So your application need to follow this standard. If you want to connect with RKLDB, you need to follow the standard. In future, if you want to change from RKLDB to MySQL, again you need to erase the complete code and you need to write these lines. And if you are shifting to DB2, you need to use these statements. But we are not doing that because Sun given a standard interface, that interface implementations are providing by third parties. What Sun is saying, you need to provide implementation for my interface only. If you try to provide different style implementations, I won't accept. You need to compulsory provide this interface implementations only. So they have given this interface implementations. This interface implementations only they have given. And to make your code independent of their implementations, right? Sun given one factory class also. Driver manager is a factory class. Driver manager is a factory class. When you call driver manager dot get connection is a factory method. When you call driver manager dot get connection factory method, this factory method internally will do what? It will create RKL object. If you pass RKL arguments, it will create MySQL object. If you pass MySQL arguments, if you pass DB2 arguments, it will create DB2 connection object, but finally it will give in the form of connection interface only. So this is how the factories will work. When you see any factory class, right? Factory class's job is they will provide objects of the provided interface implementations. Sun given the interface to make wherever you are using the JDBC code, your code should be independent of implementation provider. Okay, so they will provide an interface. So into that interface, the provider implementation object you need to get into that interface, the provider object you need to get by using the factory class. Sun only given factory class and interface both. Factory class job is it will create object for the provider implementations. I give an interface and they give an implementation, but who will create object and who will supply to my interface reference? This factory class. Okay, this factory class. We call driver manager as a factory class and get connection as a factory method. Get connection as a factory method. If you have any method, if you have any static method, right? This is a static method. That's why we are calling it as class name dot method name. Okay, so if any class is having a static method, and that static method return value, if you want to use, you can use this factory method concept. In Spring, the factory method how it is useful is, I have a class car, here, I have a car class here, and car class is having engine dependency. I have here, and a set engine method I have here to take the engine object. I have set engine method. Now I want to inject this engine object here. I have a engine factory. Here. I have engine factory class, engine factory. I have engine factory. So this is like your driver manager. Okay, always keep that the factory is like a driver manager class. Now here I have a method public static. Okay, public static engine get engine. I have one factory method name called get engine. I have a method name called get engine. So here I'm creating an engine object, new or engine equal to new engine. Consider something turbojet engine object I'm creating, and finally I'm returning it. Return E. So this is a factory method. Who is creating my engine class object? Engine factory is creating my engine class object. engine factory class get engine method. Is creating connection object driver manager class dot get connection. Same way engine factory dot get engine method is creating actual engine object. Okay, so get engine method is my factory method. I'm not creating engine class object directly in Spring, but I need to use factory class get engine method to get the engine object. Now for doing dependency injection, right? For doing dependency injection, you will create a object here, bean class car class. In this car class, I have set engine method. I have a set engine method. I have a set engine method. So I need to call property name. My property name is engine. Into this engine, I need to pass a reference. Which reference I need to pass? Which reference I should pass here? Engine object I am not creating. Engine object I am not creating. The engine object need to be created by factory. Okay, let us see. So this factory class object you need to create first. Factory class object bean ID, engine factory class name, engine factory class name, engine factory, and there is a factory method. When you have a static method, right, you can use this factory method. Factory method is equal to get engine. There is a method name called get engine. So get engine method is a factory method. So this is very important statement. Factory method. When you configure factory method, you know what will happen internally. When you configure this, right? Generally, which class object it is will consider EF ID. I'll pass here. Can I pass EF ID here? EF ID I'm giving here. My car class is having engine class dependency. My car class is having engine class dependency. My car class is having engine class dependency. And here I need to pass that engine class reference into this reference, but I have given engine factory reference. So this class is engine factory. Am I able to pass this engine factory reference into engine class? No, until unless they have parent-child relationships, you can't pass. Engine factory is a different class. I can't able to pass engine factory into engine. But engine factory class is having a factory method. Get engine is a factory method. This get engine method is returning engine class object. Okay. So when you configure a bean with factory method, right? Factory method get engine, Spring will do what? Spring will, instead of creating this engine factory object, right? What it will do? First, it will call this engine method, get engine method, as this is a static method, right? To call static method, really object not required until unless you have another methods in the factory class. Okay. So I configured a factory method here. What Spring will do, instead of creating engine factory object, straight away it will go to this engine method, engine factory dot get engine method. So it will go here and it will execute these statements. And finally, we are returning a engine object, right? That engine object it will return into this ID. While registering into your Spring context, when you use this EF ID, EF means not engine factory. When you use ID EF, it will return you engine object. When you configure a factory method, this getter method or whatever the method you configured here, right? This method return value, it will return into this ID. Now, wherever you need this engine, right? Wherever you need this engine, you use this ID reference. This ID means not engine factory. This ID means engine. Get it? So this is like a driver manager. Driver manager dot get connection will return not the driver manager object. It will return connection object. Same way, engine factory dot get engine is not returning engine factory object. It will return, instead of engine factory, it will return engine object. So when you configure this bean here, it will return engine object. Same thing if you apply for driver manager. When you need a connection object, right? Bean ID connection. but connection I can't create directly. I need to use factory class. What is my factory class? My factory class is driver manager. So driver manager is not a connection object. So what you need to do, you need to call factory space method. So you need to give your factory method here. The factory method is get connection, and the arguments you need to pass here. So if you pass that arguments to your factory method, finally which object it will create? So this statement in Spring, this statement will create connection object, not the driver manager object. Though you configure the class is driver manager, it's a factory class. So that we are specifying our factory method here. When you configure any bean with factory method, note this statement, right? When you configure any bean with factory method, this bean will return the factory method return value only, not the class which you configured. Okay, the object is not the class which you configured here. It will not create factory class object. Instead, it will return you the factory method return value object when you use this. So for creating connection, right? This is how you need to write. If you want to create connection through Spring XML file, you need to create bean ID connection, class name, driver manager, and factory method get connection. Into that get connection, you need to pass arguments. Using expressions, you might pass. Using expressions, you can pass all the URL, username, passwords. So when you use this ID connection, internally what will happen? Driver manager dot get connection method will be called, and that get connection return value it will return to your ID. So when you use ID connection, it will give you connection object, which is the factory method return value. You must be clear, right? As you know about driver manager on get connection, this is the factory class. When you have factory methods, right? When you have factory methods to get any object, you need to configure that factory methods here and your factory class here. This is factory class, this is factory method. Are we clear? Or any confusion? Hello? Yes, you following?
Yes.
Okay. See, we will discuss about the factory design pattern in detail. Okay. So just I want to tell you about this static factory method approach. Okay. So that's why I given this example, driver manager example, right? So driver manager is a factory class. Sun thought about this problem in the year 1995-96 itself. There is a problem, right? If they don't provide this pattern, always we need to use the provider implementation codes. Instead of that, we are using our own style, Sun given style. That is possible because of this factory class and factory method only. Okay, so that is the use of factory design pattern. In factory design pattern, what providers will do? Providers will provide the API provider will provide interface and factory only. The implementation providers will give the actual implementations. Factories will create the implementation provider objects. Not only for this scenario, if you want to make any of your classes independent of implementations, we can follow the same design pattern, factory design pattern. Okay, we'll give you multiple examples on this. Okay, so by that time you will understand completely what is factory.
Can you repeat
Yes.
what is the exact purpose of this factory bean?
Factory bean.
Yeah, this factory class, what is the exact purpose of this factory class?
Yeah, so this is what the purpose. I mean, if you see from the design pattern point of view, what is the purpose of driver manager, you think?
For different DBs, whatever Oracle or MySQL,
Correct.
it will suit for every DB.
Yes, exactly. So driver manager is a factory class. Driver manager get connection method is suitable to create any vendor connection implementations. To create any vendor connection implementations, correct? The same
Yeah.
way, yeah, the same way. Engine factory is a factory class. This factory class should able to provide any engine implementation. I'll show you. Okay, the full implementation I'll give you now in an example. The same thing we are going to achieve here.
Without
Just
creating that
remember,
bean, it doesn't know whether it is a normal class or factory class. I mean, we are just specifying
yeah,
factory method in the bean.
correct. Without mentioning this factory method, Spring doesn't know whether it is a factory or not. Until unless you mention a factory method, it doesn't know that it's a factory. When you configure factory method, then it will realize, okay, he wants to create object from a factory method. Okay, then it will create object from the factory method and it will supply. Same style of implementation I'll do here. Let's see. Okay, Spring, yeah, using factory bean, no factory method. Using factory method, Spring factory method. Add your library. Like Sun system, how created their interface and factory, right? I'll create similar way. Consider time being, we are creating connection interface and driver manager. Okay, so I'll create the interface first. Instead of connection interface, I'm creating a engine interface. I'll create a engine interface. I'm creating a engine interface. This is my interface engine. Okay, public void engine start engine. So this is a interface given by like a connection interface. Consider like connection interface. So this is like connection interface. Who given? Sun given connection interface and Sun only given driver manager also. So I'll create engine factory. So engine factory also given by Sun. This is like a driver manager. So it needs a factory method to create connection object. To create a connection object, it needs a method public engine, public static engine, get engine. I should create a engine class object. Okay, which engine class object I need to create? This is a factory and this is the interface for whom I need to create the object. I don't know because I don't have any implementations. So what I will take as a get connection method will take arguments right here, string URL, username, passwords. The same way, instead of taking here as I'm using Spring, I'll take one argument here, private. Same arguments I'll take through dependency injection, private string, right? Engine provider or else engine provider. I'll take engine provider class name here. So how I can create object if I know the provider class name? Using class dot for name, you can pass engine provider dot. Okay. Let's make it static. Static we can access through static, right? Dot new instance. So new instance will create an object. I'll pass at runtime one implementation class object here. Okay, we know how to pass static values, right? set engine provider name I will pass using method invoking factory bean. I'll take help of method invoking factory bean to pass this provider. So now by using this provider name, I'm creating instance. Which instance it will create? The provider instance. Provider should be your engine interface implementation only. The provider engine should be your engine interface implementation only. Finally, you return engine object. Yeah. So driver manager and engine interface both given by Sun. Fine. Now who will provide implementations? For this engine, who will provide implementations? I'm giving one provider. Okay, I'm giving one provider here. Fiat engine. Fiat providing one engine implementation for the engine interface. Implements engine interface. Fiat engine implementation I have here. Similar way, there can be many partners. Like if you consider this like a Oracle connection, there can be multiple partners can be implemented. Okay, consider Suzuki providing one engine, like a MySQL connection. Suzuki implementation we have here. So Sun given interfaces and factory classes implementation should be from third parties. Now who is going to use it? Who is going to use it? In my API, I'm going to use it. So I am implementing my API. I'm implementing my code here. Car. So this is like your DAO class. This is like your DAO class. Now this class needs an engine, private engine. Engine means connection. So your class needs an engine object. Your class needs an engine object. So you have a set engine method. So using this set engine method, your class will do CRUD operations like save update operations. I have a start car operation. If you can consider the start car like a save method. Using this connection, I should be able to call the implementations. I have start engine like a save method if you consider that. So this is my class. Into this class, I need an engine object. But engine is an interface. This interface implementation who will provide? This engine factory will provide. This engine factory will provide. Into this engine factory, what I need to pass? The engine provider names I need to pass. Either Fiat or Suzuki, whoever given implementations. How to do that? You can do it from your Spring. What you need to do? Okay, so here is my method invoking factory bean. Method invoking factory bean class, just to take help, right? Into this engine factory, I need to pass the static value. You know, right? Static variable dependency injection we can able to do through method invoking factory bean. Beans dot engine factory dot what is the method that will accept it? Set engine provider. Okay, so this engine factory set engine provider will take argument. What is the argument? One argument we need to pass. The provider class name. Who are all the providers? Fiat we have and Suzuki we have. So beans dot Fiat engine. A string as a string argument I'm passing here. So this value will be injected here into this class. Beans dot Fiat engine will be passed here. The same name I am using here to create runtime object. To create objects, we can use class.forName, right? Class.forName runtime argument I'm creating, and whatever object I am creating here, fiat, if I pass fiat object or Suzuki object, those two are implementations of interface only, right? I can able to pass that implementation into this interface reference, and finally I'm returning it. So now you can configure your factory class here. Factory method be id engine class name beans dot engine factory. Basically, I don't need this engine factory object. Instead, I need this method. In engine factory, I have this static method get engine. I need that method to get my engine object. So factory method, you need to configure get engine here. That's it. Now you can consider this ID as a engine object, not a engine factory object. So this ID means engine object because we configured factory method here. This factory method get engine method will return engine class object, using which one we passed already this beans dot fiat engine class name. This object is creating inside this get engine method, and when you use this engine, right, this fiat engine object will be provided. So now wherever you want to use this engine, you can use this. Bean have a car class. Configure your car class here. API, where we have this inside API, right? Here, API dot car. Car class is having dependency of engine property. Engine dependency I have. This engine object I created through factory method. You can pass that factory method reference here. When I pass this, basically internally it will invoke this get engine. This get engine method return value only will be provided. Now when I execute this API, load your Spring XML. Into application class. Now you can call car dot start car. Fiat engine implementation executed. When I call start car, fiat implementation executed, which means like RKill connection used internally. Now if you want to change that, change it from here, beans dot instead of fiat, as I have Suzuki, we pass Suzuki engine class name here. Now onwards, my car will use Suzuki engine. Right? This is how we can use factory for making our implementation independent of provided implementations. Okay, we'll give multiple examples on this. You will understand. Just compare with JDBC so that it will be clear to you. Okay. Yeah, tomorrow I'll give you multiple examples again on this factory using factory bean concept. Okay. So just you need to understand what when we configure a factory method, this method should be a static method. Okay. This is a static method in this class. So whatever value this static method will return, right, that value it will return when you use this ID. Okay, in a simple words. Are we clear?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so we'll discuss about this factory again. Okay. You will get the conclusion. We are going to use many factories going forward, Spring given many factories. So while using that factories, we should not surprise why they are giving instead of the class we configured here, the method return values. Yes, that is the use of factories. Okay, there will be many factors that we are going to use. Even if you see this method invoking factory bin, it's a factory bin. The purpose of this factory is injecting static values. Okay, yeah. So done for today. I'll send these examples, and tomorrow also we'll connect the same time 8:45. Okay, I'll be a little late tomorrow. From Monday we'll continue again from 8:30. Yeah. So that's all for today. Thanks all. Yeah. Bye. Good day.